or I eat a bag of shit. Sit up on a pineapple or throw it in her dick. I said, would you rather?
Okay, today's Would You Rather, guys, we are looking at, this is a good one, Frank. Love this one, man. We've got Michael Pittman Jr., wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts, versus DK Metcalf, my man, my guy, and my boy band. He's part of my boy band. Yeah. What did I say? A couple of years ago, I think I wanted to lick his chest or something. I got super gay about DK.
Hey, I get it. I mean, how can you not,
DK Metcalf, wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. All right, let's compare these guys, because I have to be honest with you, Frankie, even looking at your notes and your research on this, I still, as of right now recording, I don't know which one I'm going to choose. I really don't. So our conversation here is going to make me make a decision. So lay it out for me, brother.
Love it. John, I'm going to start with MPJ, okay? Michael Pittman Jr. for that of the Indianapolis Colts. John, right now he's walking in as receiver 20. His ECR is ranked as 20, expert consensus ranking. His ADP, average draft position, is that of 37. So just a couple key callouts here, man. Looking at what he did last year, right? Think about it. He started off with Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson goes down. Gardner Minshew comes into play. He still had an incredible season. He had roughly about 198 fantasy points in half PPR, John. He also then, what did that mean? How did he get those fantasy points? 156 targets. Let me pause. 156 targets, okay? That's a lot, man, especially when you have Alec Pierce, you had Josh Downs, a few of these other guys, that's a lot. And then that ended up transferring into 109 receptions, 1,152 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Dude had a hell of a season with subpar quarterback play to a certain degree. So let's dive in, John, a little bit into some of the pros and cons with Michael Pittman Jr. Pros here. He played with Gardner Minshew for most of the year. Why is that a pro? Because we only see the quarterback play getting better with Anthony Richardson being healthy. Anthony Richardson was drafted in the top 5 picks as a rookie, and therefore they're going to be utilizing him from the deep ball threat all the way to the rushing attack, so on and so forth. So therefore, it really helps. The other thing to call out, when he was playing with Anthony Richardson, John, in the first 3 games, he had 34 targets in 3 games. He also ended up having 25 receptions, 230 yards, and a touchdown. That is phenomenal to see from a rookie quarterback throwing that to that of Michael Pittman Jr. So that's why this is such a pro, knowing Anthony Richardson is back. Then you layer on Jonathan Taylor. The reason why this is a pro is because without Jonathan Taylor, yes, they had Zach Moss last year, but I don't want to discount or discredit anything Zach Moss did because it was really good, but it's not Jonathan Taylor. Now that you have Jonathan Taylor here, it opens up the passing game even more. And so because of these different elements that have changed from last year to this year, assuming everyone is healthy, John, Michael Pittman Jr. could be in for a very fun year. Now, let's talk about some of the cons here, man. So some of the issues that I have is that the Colts have added Adonai Mitchell right to the roster. Innately, this is going to take away some targets, right? We're not talking Alec Pierce now, where it was Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Michael Pittman Jr. Now it's Adonai Mitchell, Josh Downs, as well as Alec Pierce here and there, but then that of Michael Pittman Jr. So the target share, there will be some targets taken away from that of Michael Pittman Jr., assumingly with the emergence of that of A.D. Mitchell. The other thing, as I was talking about Anthony Richardson, we have to also take into consideration a slight con that could come with this, and that is his rushing ability. Even though that will open up some dump-off passes and things like that, what the difference is last year, man, Gardner Minshew didn't have that rushing capability. So when issues came push to shove, he was trying to offload the ball. Even if he was putting it in throwing it away, even if he was trying to get it to Michael Pittman Jr., the goal was not for Gardner Minshew to run. The goal was for him to throw. In Anthony Richardson's situation, if he gets outside the pocket, he might not be looking down the field as much to throw the ball. therefore taking away additional targets from that of Michael Pittman Jr., knowing he's going to be rushing. So it's a slight con for the overarching pro of that of Anthony Richardson, but I would have been remiss if I didn't say that.
When you're saying that, I'm trying to look at it and see, okay, now this situation is a little different. How is it going to translate this year? Because you're right, with Gardner Minshew is a very different quarterback than Anthony Richardson, which we still don't really know. We're talking 3 games with Anthony Richardson, and he got hurt in the beginning of the 4th game. So we still don't know how this is actually going to play out. But what's good for me, I'm looking at the stats right now. As you were talking about that, the 3 games that MPJ did play with Anthony Richardson, he had a good target volume, man. 11 targets, 12 targets, 11 targets. The 3 games that Anthony Richardson played. So that's interesting and encouraging to me that he was still able to get those targets even with a running quarterback. And you saw how much he ran. He rushed a lot. So it's still possible to get the targets, I think, through that. Now, again, with JT healthy, which he wasn't in those 3 games. Having JT, having Anthony Richardson, a lot of rushing, a lot of people spying in the backfield there.
Yep.
I think that will help. It will take away some targets, no question, because they're going to run the ball more often than they threw the ball last year with Gardner Minshew. But I think it is going to open up lanes for Michael Pittman Jr. I think you are going to see guys sneaking up towards the line, paying attention to Anthony Richardson, paying attention to Jonathan Taylor. So I think it could help MPJ in that aspect. I think where it will really help MPJ, he only had 4 touchdowns last year. I think it puts them in a better position to score. They're going to be running the ball a lot more, from 20 to the 20, in the meat of the field. And I think they're going to have a lot more red zone opportunities with Anthony Richardson in and with Jonathan Taylor in. So his targets could go down slightly, but I think his touchdowns go up. He's going to be in a much better position by himself in the back of the end zone than I think he has in the past. Okay, let's talk a little bit about DK Metcalf, man. Lay him out for me.
John, DK Metcalf, you're sitting there. If you want DK, his ECR or his receiver ranking is 21. So 1 spot above that of Michael Pittman Jr. His ADP is 41 in comparison to Michael Pittman Jr.'s 37. So you almost get him at a slightly better value, just ever so slightly. So what did he do? DK, 2023 stats, John, he roughly had in half PPR about 196 fantasy points. Again, Michael Pittman Jr., roughly about 198. What was interesting with DK, though, was that he had 119 targets, which is significantly less than that of MPJ. He also had 66 receptions, significantly less than that of MPJ. But what was interesting is he still had 1,114 yards. And here's the differentiating stat here. 8 touchdowns in comparison to that of Michael Pittman Jr.'s 4. So you're doubling the touchdown share with that of, or the touchdowns in general with that of DK comparison to Michael Pittman Jr. So let's talk about the pros a little bit more with DK. Touchdown machine. Let's dive into the touchdowns full go. 26 touchdowns, John, in the last 3 years. That's what DK has been producing. He also never has finished below 900 yards receiving or under 6 touchdowns in a single season. He's never finished below that. He also went through this past year an immense coaching change, right? It was Pete Carroll last year with the offensive coordinator being that of Shane Waldron. And now they have Mike McDaniel as well as OC Ryan Grubb. So this could actually be a very good thing for DK. The reason being, man, is because we all know Pete Carroll, his offense has always been what? Ground and fucking pound. Marshawn Lynch, Sean Alexander, right? Some of these other cats that we've seen, like with, Rashad Penny even, Kenneth Walker Jr., they draft Zach Charbonnet in the recent years, right? So they have always been a ground and pound. Chris Carson, right? Don't forget about that dude. Loved him for years. So there's been always a stable of running backs that they always ran running back first and then would leverage the play action off of that. We have to wait and see what's going to happen with this offensive coordinator and how he's going to be calling plays. But again, I actually look at this as a positive because I don't think they can get any more run heavy than what they've been in the past. So anything additional will just be gravy for that of DK. Now, some of the concerns, some of the cons here. So the cons here, man, major competition. Okay, we're not talking that of, right, Adonai Mitchell, who's a rookie. We're not talking about that of Josh Downs, who had a solid rookie year last year. We're talking two established guys. Even though JSN was a rookie last year, what he did in college, he's established. He's an absolute monster. Last year as a rookie, JSN had 93 targets. Lockett, John, still had 122 targets. What did I say DK had? He had 119. So Lockett is still dominating the target share overall, even though you can say, yeah, it's only 3 more targets than DK, but let's dive in a bit further. Tyler Lockett has had over 100 targets in 5 straight seasons now, and he's had 1,000+ yards in 4 out of the last 5 seasons. What that is telling me, John, is we're waiting for the cliff to kind of fall for that of Tyler Lockett, and the dude is Mr. Consistent, you know? And so that is a big deal when you're looking to decide, do I roll with DK knowing the competition there, or do I roll with somebody like that of MPJ where it's not as solidified in terms of the competition? The other key call out is that Geno Smith at quarterback, right? It's very much so an average type of quarterback. Yes, he had a good year 2 years ago. Yes, he got paid, which deservingly so. But this dude is definitely in the back third of top producing quarterbacks, in my personal opinion. So again, when you're comparing kind of the quarterbacks here, man, you got Anthony Richardson, definitely more of an unknown, definitely more higher upside, absolutely lower floor based on his injury history in comparison to that of Geno Smith, who is steady Eddie, right? You know what you're getting from him. He's not going to have a shit ton of big blow up games. He's not going to really have a crap ton of really bad games. He's going to be pretty consistent across the board. So I kind of look at that as a con because there's really no ceiling play there for that of DK. Then lastly, John, a con to think about, guys, is if you are playing in a league format that is PPR or half PPR. The reason this is important to call out is because if you're in a standard league, I don't need to talk anything further, man. You go with the touchdown dependency. You go with a guy who has been there, done it, and it has literally not had less than 900 yards receiving or 6 touchdowns in any season that he's played. Versus that of if you're PPR or half PPR, I'm going to go with a guy that has way more upside in terms of target share and receptions, right? Even though they're not as high from a touchdown dependency, I want to get that every single time they catch something, I'm getting a point, right? So when we look at the two differences, now that we kind of broke down single-handedly, one by one, John, I want to tell you who I'm going with. I'm locking in Michael fucking Pittman Jr. for that of the Indianapolis Colts. And it's strictly because in half PPR, full PPR leagues, I mentioned the target share. But more importantly, I like the opportunity of a ceiling that Anthony Richardson provides. I think that's really enticing. The other key call out is we saw what happened when Anthony Richardson got hurt. Gardner Minshew came in, and therefore his production still did not drop, John. He still performed incredibly high. So do I go to the length of saying he's kind of, quarterback agnostic, right? No, I don't think so. I think that, yes, I actually do think so, if I'm being honest with you. I think that meaning he can play with any type of quarterback versus that of DK. I think if you're not getting the ball down the field or looking at him in the red zone, right, that is an issue. So if it's my personal perspective on this, man, I'm rolling with MPJ. What do you think? Come on, man. I know that hit you deep down with your boy band, but I'm curious.
It does. Hey, I will separate my emotions and my heart from my head when it comes to fantasy football or betting or any of that kind of stuff. You can't let emotions get in the way. Listen, I love DK Metcalf. He's a true alpha. You're right. He's very touchdown dependent. With those 8 touchdowns, keep in mind, 3 of them came in one game.
Good call. Good point.
So that's a big deal. That's a big deal. That's a couple of extra touchdowns there. And I think Lockett was hurt that game, in fact. But yeah, it's tough. He's got a lot of competition. I mean, Lockett is still hanging on. He's still at 31 years old. Is this the cliff? Could be. I think if you're drafting DK Metcalf, that's sure as shit what you're hoping for.
Yep.
You're hoping that Tyler Lockett has hit a little bit of a cliff and DK is just going to be the alpha. But you're right. It's just a lower volume. It's a lower volume play. And when you're comparing Michael Pittman Jr., who we know is going to have the volume. I don't know if the offense is going to run through him, going to be very heavy run offense as well, but we've seen it. And the same thing with Anthony Richardson, the risk there being low because if Richardson gets hurt again, which he probably will, how about this a dude we may never see play a full season of football? I don't know. But guess who the backup is? It's Joe Flacco.
Flacco, baby.
So,
Flacco
I mean,
for Flacco.
that is not going to hurt MPJ at all.
So
if
sexy.
anything, it's going to hurt Jonathan Taylor and it's going to help MPJ, you know? Yeah, so I'm with you, man. I'm sorry. We do agree on this one. If I'm looking at that tier and I'm building a team, and it really doesn't matter the format, really. I guess you're right. If it's a standard format, then I may look more towards DK Metcalf because something does happen to Tyler Lockett or JSN. He shoots up for sure. But you're right. Half PPR, without question. To me, it's Michael Pittman Jr. To get Michael Pittman Jr., both of these guys you're going to be looking at in the 4th round. They're right in that same tier. And for a 4th round, Michael Pittman Jr., get him as my flex or my wide receiver 2 if I went running backs up at the top. I love it, man. I love it. All right. Today's winner is Michael Pittman Jr. from the Indianapolis Colts. Congratulations, my friend. Hope we can get you on our teams.